The day I resigned from my job was the day I finally chose myself. I didn't expect applause. I didn't even expect understanding. But I also didn't expect the door to slam open and my mother-in-law's voice to echo through the apartment like a siren. "Are you insane? How dare you quit your job? Who's going to pay my mortgage now?" she screamed, her face red with rage. For a moment, I just stood there, still holding the envelope that contained my resignation confirmation. I had rehearsed so many possible reactions in my mind, my husband being worried, maybe even disappointed. But this was something else. Let me tell you how it all began. When I married Anton, I thought I was marrying a partner. He was charming, attentive, and promised that we would build a life together. I worked as a project manager in a mid-sized marketing company. The job was demanding, but it paid well. Anton, on the other hand, had a modest salary and a mountain of big plans that never seemed to materialize. 3 months after the wedding, his mother moved in, temporarily. She had recently taken out a large mortgage for a new apartment in her own name, claiming she wanted to invest in property while prices were still reasonable. But soon, temporary turned into permanent, and I discovered the ugly truth. Every month, a large portion of my salary was being transferred, not to our savings, not to our future, but to cover her mortgage payments. At first, I thought it was a short-term emergency. Anton told me, "It's just until mom stabilizes. We're family. We help each other." I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to be the good daughter-in-law. But months turned into a year. I was working late nights, skipping vacations, turning down opportunities for professional growth just to maintain stability. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law treated me like an employee she had personally hired. "If you're going to live under the same roof, you should at least contribute properly," she would say, as if the mortgage payment wasn't contribution enough. Anton never defended me. Whenever I tried to talk to him, he would shrug and say, "You know how she is. Just ignore it, ignore it, ignore the fact that I was financing a house that wasn't mine. Ignore the constant criticism about how I cooked, how I dressed, how I managed my time. Ignore the whispers about how women today are too ambitious and forget their place." The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening. I had just finished a 12-hour shift. My head was pounding. I walked into the kitchen and found my mother-in-law sitting at the table with a stack of bills. She didn't even greet me. "You'll need to pick up extra hours," she said flatly. The interest rate increased. "The payment is higher now." I stared at her, exhausted beyond words. "I can't," I said quietly. "I'm already burned out." She looked at me as if I had just insulted her lineage. Burned out? From sitting in an office? In my day, women worked and raised children without complaining. In my day, I went to bed that night and didn't sleep. I realized something painful. I wasn't living my life. I was funding someone else's. The next morning, I walked into my manager's office. I had been offered a different opportunity weeks before, a remote consulting role that paid slightly less but promised flexibility and room to grow. I had declined it out of fear, out of obligation. That day, I accepted it. I resigned. For the first time in 2 years, I felt air in my lungs. But peace never lasts long in a house built on control. When I told Anton, he blinked as if I had spoken a foreign language. "You what?" I quit. "I'm starting a new job next month. It's remote." His face paled. "Did you talk to mom?" There it was. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Why?" But, "Did you ask permission?" "She doesn't need to approve my career decisions," I replied. Apparently, she disagreed. She burst into the room minutes later, having overheard our conversation. And that's when she screamed the words I will never forget. "Are you stupid? How dare you quit? Who's going to pay my mortgage now?" Not our mortgage, her mortgage. Something shifted inside me in that moment. All the guilt, all the obligation, all the years of trying to please dissolved into a single, clear thought. It was never my responsibility. "I'm not your bank," I said calmly. She gasped as if I had slapped her. "You live here. I pay more than enough to live here," I replied. "In fact, I've been paying for your investment." Anton tried to intervene, but his words were weak, scattered. "Let's just calm down." But I was calm. For the first time, I was calm. "I'm not paying the mortgage anymore," I continued. "You and Anton can figure it out." Silence fell like a heavy curtain. My mother-in-law's expression changed from anger to something colder. "So you're abandoning family?" "No," I said softly. "I'm stopping the exploitation." That night, Anton accused me of being selfish. He said I was destroying the family's stability. I asked him a simple question. If your mother couldn't pay her mortgage, would she sell the apartment? He hesitated. No, she'd expect us to help. Exactly, I replied. She bought something she couldn't afford, assuming I would carry it. Over the next weeks, the tension in the apartment became unbearable. My mother-in-law barely spoke to me except to make sarcastic comments. Anton withdrew into silence, but something interesting happened. With my new remote job, I began to thrive. I worked reasonable hours. I took care of my health. I started saving money, for myself. And when the next mortgage payment was due, I didn't transfer a cent. The shouting returned, the blame, the accusations, but this time, I didn't crumble. Instead, I packed a suitcase. I had been quietly preparing. I found a small apartment closer to the city center. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. No hidden expectations, no emotional debts. When I told Anton I was leaving, he looked shocked. You're overreacting. No, I said, I'm finally reacting appropriately. He asked if this meant divorce. I told him it meant clarity. I married you, I said, not your mother's financial obligations. He didn't follow me when I walked out the door. Months have passed since that day. I heard through mutual friends that the apartment was eventually rented out to help cover the mortgage. They figured it out, just like I said they would. As for Anton, he called a few times. He said the house feels empty without me. He said his mother complains constantly now that she has to manage things herself. I wished him well, but I didn't go back. Leaving wasn't easy. Society teaches women to endure, to sacrifice, to be the glue that holds everything together, even when the structure is collapsing on them. But there is a difference between support and servitude. Between family and financial dependency disguised as love. I don't regret quitting my job. I don't regret refusing to fund someone else's poor decisions. And I certainly don't regret choosing peace over constant criticism. Sometimes the loudest scream in the room reveals the deepest truth. Her scream wasn't about my career. It was about losing control. And the moment I understood that, I stopped being afraid. Today, I wake up in a quiet apartment that echoes only with my own thoughts. I work on projects that excite me. I invest in my own future. And every time I transfer money into my savings account, I smile, not because of the amount, but because of what it represents. Freedom. The moral of my story isn't about conflict with a mother-in-law, it's about boundaries. If someone's stability depends entirely on your silent sacrifice, that's not stability. That's exploitation. No one has the right to demand your exhaustion as proof of loyalty. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is say no, walk away, and let people face the consequences of choices they made long before you arrived. Because your life is not a payment plan for someone else's mortgage. When I closed the door behind me that night, I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. The hallway of my new apartment building smelled like fresh paint and unfamiliar lives. My suitcase wheels echoed against the tiles as if announcing that I had officially crossed a line I could never uncross. For 2 years, I had lived in noise, constant criticism, passive-aggressive comments, financial pressure disguised as family duty. And now, suddenly, there was silence. The first night alone was the hardest. I sat on the floor because my furniture hadn't arrived yet. The walls were bare. The kitchen cabinets were empty except for a kettle and 2 cups I had bought on the way. I remember staring at my phone, half expecting Anton to call and say, "Come back. We'll fix this." He didn't. Instead, I received a message from my mother-in-law. "So this is how you repay everything we've done for you." I read it twice. Everything we've done for you. It was strange how easily people rewrite history when they feel threatened. I didn't respond. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to defend myself. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight instead of shouting. I made coffee in silence. I logged into my new remote job. My colleagues greeted me warmly on video calls. They didn't know the storm I had just left behind. To them, I was simply a new consultant with strong experience and fresh ideas. And that's when something unexpected happened. I performed better than I ever had before. Without constant stress, my mind was clearer. Without financial pressure, my creativity returned. Within a few weeks, I had secured 2 major clients for the firm. My manager praised my initiative. I began to remember who I was before I became someone else's financial safety net. Meanwhile, the storm continued in the old apartment. Anton started calling more frequently. At first, his tone was defensive. "You could have handled this differently," he said during one call. Mom is under a lot of stress. So was I replied calmly. He sighed. She says you humiliated her by not paying her mortgage. There was a long pause. It's not just about the money, he insisted. But it was. Money wasn't just currency in that household. It was control. It was leverage. It was proof of loyalty. 2 months after I left, Anton showed up at my new apartment unexpectedly. He looked tired, older somehow. Can I come in? He asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He looked around at the small but tidy space. The bookshelf I had assembled myself. The plants on the windowsill. The modest couch. Everything simple. Everything earned by me, for me. It's nice, he admitted. It's peaceful, I corrected. He sat down and ran his hands over his face. Mom had to rent out the apartment she bought, he said. The tenants moved in last week. I'm glad she found a solution. She's furious, because I stopped paying, because you left, he said quietly. I looked at him carefully. Do you miss me, Anton? Or do you miss what I provided? The question seemed to hit him harder than he expected. I miss you, he said. Then why didn't you protect me? He didn't answer, and that silence told me everything. The truth is, Anton wasn't evil. He was comfortable letting me carry the burden. Comfortable avoiding conflict with his mother. Comfortable with the arrangement, as long as it benefited him. Leaving forced him to confront responsibilities he had never fully accepted. Weeks passed. I focused on my work, my health, in rebuilding friendships I had neglected. I joined a gym. I started reading again. I even took a weekend trip alone, something I would never have dared to do before without being accused of irresponsibility. But healing isn't linear. Some nights, doubt crept in. What if I overreacted? What if marriage requires sacrifice? What if I was too harsh? Those thoughts usually appeared when I felt lonely, not when I felt disrespected. That distinction mattered. One evening, Anton called again. Mom wants to meet you, he said cautiously. For what? To talk. I laughed softly. She already said everything she needed to say. She thinks you've been influenced by modern ideas. I raised an eyebrow. Like financial independence. He didn't laugh. Despite my hesitation, I agreed to meet them in a neutral place, a cafe halfway between our homes. When I walked in, my mother-in-law was already seated, posture rigid, lips pressed tight. Anton sat beside her like a mediator. I greeted them politely and sat down. She didn't waste time. You've embarrassed this family, she began. People are asking questions. About what? About why you left your husband. I left a situation, I corrected. She shook her head. A wife doesn't abandon her duties. What duties? I asked calmly. Financing your investments, working until exhaustion, staying silent when disrespected. Her eyes flashed. You're exaggerating. No, I said evenly. I'm remembering. The conversation went in circles. She insisted that family requires unity. I agreed, but unity without respect is submission. At one point, she leaned forward and said something that changed everything. If you come back, we can arrange things differently. Arrange things, meaning, I asked. You can contribute less, maybe only half the payment. I stared at her. Even now, even after everything, she still saw my income as a resource to negotiate. I stood up. I didn't leave to renegotiate, I said quietly. I left because it was never my responsibility in the first place. Anton looked torn. Is there really no way to fix this? He asked. There is, I said. But it requires boundaries. He looked confused. Your mother's finances are not my obligation. If we are to continue this marriage, we live separately. We manage our own household. And decisions about my career are mine alone. My mother-in-law scoffed. So you want to separate a son from his mother? No, I replied. I want to separate a husband from financial dependency. The meeting ended without resolution. A month later, Anton asked for time to think. I gave it to him. In that time, something remarkable happened. I stopped waiting. I realized that my happiness no longer depended on his decision. I had already rebuilt my foundation. My savings were growing. My work was flourishing. My mental health was improving. One afternoon, I received an email from a client offering a long-term contract, one that would double my income within a year if performance remained strong. I accepted. That evening, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights and felt something I hadn't felt in years, pride. Not because I had won. Not because I had proven anyone wrong. But because I had chosen myself without apology. 2 weeks later, Anton came to see me again. He looked different, determined. I've been looking at apartments, he said. For yourself. For us. I studied his face. Does your mother know? He nodded slowly. She's not happy. And I can't keep living between you two, he admitted. I should have stepped up earlier. I didn't rush into his arms. I didn't cry. I simply asked the question that mattered most. If she needs financial help again, what will you do? I'll help her within my means, he said. But I won't expect you to. And if she criticizes me, I'll handle it. For the first time, he sounded like a partner instead of a bridge. But trust rebuilds slowly. I'm not moving back into chaos, I said firmly. If we try again, it's on new terms. Equal responsibility, mutual respect, no hidden expectations. He nodded. I understand. Do I believe him completely? Not yet, but here's the difference between the woman I was and the woman I am now. I no longer fear walking away. If reconciliation happens, it will be because it adds peace to my life, not because I feel guilty or pressured. And if it doesn't, I will still be fine. Because the real transformation wasn't leaving the apartment. It was leaving the mindset that told me my worth was measured by how much I could endure. Family should not feel like a financial contract written in invisible ink. Marriage should not feel like employment without salary. And love should never require you to sacrifice your autonomy. The woman who was screamed at, called irresponsible for quitting her job, no longer exists in the same form. She evolved. She understood that sometimes the loudest accusations are projections of fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing convenience. Fear of facing reality without someone else paying the bill. Today, when I transfer money into my savings account, it's not just currency. It's proof that I broke a cycle. Whether Anton truly changes or not remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. I will never again confuse sacrifice with love. And I will never again allow someone to mistake my independence for rebellion. Because choosing yourself is not selfish. It's necessary.